Nest held a press conference in San Francisco today, and they revealed a sort of new product, and they updated a few of their existing products. The new product is the Nest Cam, which is essentially a Dropcam Pro. And Dropcam is the Wi-Fi video streaming camera company that Nest acquired, I believe, after Nest was acquired by Google. I think I have that in the right order.
Right.
What do you think of the Nest Cam?
Ultimately, it looks like it'll have a little bit better picture quality. It's got some infrared emitters for low light video as well. But ultimately, those were not complaints when it came to the Dropcam Pro. As you mentioned, it was already a pretty high resolution camera, and it already did pretty good when it came to low light video as well. So the new move here is really when it comes to the online availability of the video. They're promising some kind of Google algorithms basically to make it better at figuring out what you want to look at and kind of triggering events based on, if you see movement in your house, that kind of thing. This isn't the first camera that we've seen with that kind of functionality. So I'm curious to see if this is just kind of marketing speak, or if indeed there are some really good smarts in this camera that will make it smarter than your average IP camera, which again has this kind of functionality built in.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It made me immediately think of the Google Photos app, which, I have downloaded all my photos or uploaded all my photos. And it's always amazing to me, everything that it knows, all the facial recognition, and it can, capture the moments that I want to see. And then I think about how great it is, and then it starts to completely creep me out that it knows this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the idea to have something like this in your home watching you all the time and capturing those moments. Yeah, absolutely. You could see that being a little bit disconcerting. But ultimately, it could be a good thing, too. I mean, if this were smart enough to really be able to tell the difference between my dog walking across the room and me walking across the room and trigger a motion alert for one versus the other, that would be great. But that was one of the big pieces I think missing from the Nest announcements today was any kind of notion of a security system based on all this. They've got the smoke alarm, the smart thermostat, and now a camera too. It wouldn't be that big of a step, you think, to go from there to something of some sort of a home security system that can give you alarms or alerts if it's detecting motion. Maybe even have some kind of a monitoring system as well that can alert the fire department or the police department if there are issues. It seems like a natural small step from where they are now, and I was hoping to see something like that today. Unfortunately, not the case.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They do seem to be aiming at people who are away from home. I don't know. I'm a working mom, so maybe this is just what I took from it. But women who want to see what their family's doing, want to see what the babysitter's doing, rather than keeping the bad guys out. It does seem like that's the aim. Just checking to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an easier problem to tackle, and ultimately one that probably comes with less liability as well. If you're designed to protect the home and you don't alert somebody when a burglar walks through the living room, then that opens the door, I think, to more complaint than if you don't trigger the babysitter walking across the living room, that kind of thing. So I can understand that, but ultimately I think that's still a big need, and that's one of the big things that we see a lot of little companies trying to solve here and there with solutions that are good in some ways but not great. It'd be really good to see someone like Google stepping into the home security market and doing something great there.
Right. And then are they going to allow, it said that it would make your footage easy to share. I'm not exactly sure what they meant. Do they mean like posting your security cam footage on Facebook?
Presumably so, yeah, or at least sending it to your friends. It's hard to imagine what sort of footage you want to share from the camera. I guess if your dog does something silly, or if your child, maybe the first steps of your child, you can see that kind of thing, I suppose. But more likely it'll be maybe something like if you're playing a dancing game and someone does something silly and falls on their face, that would be YouTube gold, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, it's just part of us recording ourselves all the time and sharing it, I guess.
Getting closer.
They also announced the new Nest Protect smoke detector. What makes this better than my current smoke detector?
Ultimately, it's got a little bit more smarts than your current smoke detector. Supposedly, it can detect the difference between types of fires and really tell you if something really serious is happening versus more of a slow burning fire. I'm not sure the value of something like that. Ultimately, if there's a fire, you probably want to know about it either way. But they said they can do that. You can also turn it off from your smartphone, which is, again, something of somewhat dubious value, in my opinion. I don't know if I want to be trying to find my phone as the alarm is blaring to shut it off. But ultimately, it does have a carbon monoxide detector built in as well, which is nice. You only have one device to worry about instead of two. And because of that, it can also turn off your home heating system. So if a fire or carbon monoxide alarm goes off, it can turn off the furnace. And ultimately, furnaces are a pretty big cause of carbon monoxide in homes when we have issues and people die from that sort of thing. It's often because of a leaky exhaust or something like that on the furnace. So ultimately, just shutting that off is a pretty good feature to have. And indeed, probably one of the biggest features of this smoke detector is that they're promising discounts through some insurance providers. Right now, it's a very limited selection. But if they can expand that and get you 5% off of your homeowner's insurance, that thing may actually pay for itself in pretty short order.
That makes sense. I am guessing that you have never had a faulty smoke detector that went off every time you made toast.
No, I've not actually had. I certainly have been experienced burnt toast in the office and that kind of thing, but thankfully, no, I've not had that issue myself.
Right, because I can see how I would like to turn it off with my smartphone as opposed to what I now do, which is open all the windows, wave things in front of and then the dog goes crazy, and it's. I would appreciate that. But apparently they're also it was supposed to have gesture control, like you could just wave your hand in the air and make it stop or something. Minority
that was one of the big issues with the original, actually, was that if there's a fire, pretty good chance someone's going to be running around the house, and so it was actually detecting that as if someone trying to turn off the alarm, and that was one of the big issues why the first one was recalled. They didn't make any mention of whether or not gesture control will return in this version. I wouldn't be surprised, given all the issues they had with the first one, if they decide that that's perhaps not the best feature to include.